Welcome to Ask Dr. Change. I'm Dr. Linda Ackerman Anderson. I'm happy to have you join me today to explore how to seriously uplevel your leadership and consulting to transformational changes, all through conscious change leadership. Welcome. Today I have the honor and blessing of an interview with my dear friend and colleague, Dr. Diana Whitney, co-creator of Appreciative Inquiry, a very, very important and powerful approach to positive transformation. Diana, welcome, and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Hi, Linda. Thank you very much for having me. It is an absolute delight to be here. A little bit about myself. Well, as you know, I've been doing organizational change consulting for going on, I don't know if I say it out loud, 45, 48 years.
Yes.
And my work is primarily focused on appreciative inquiry. And we'll talk much more about what that is as we get into our time together. But I've been consulting to organizations, large-scale change, helping with everything from improving customer service, mergers and acquisitions. Just recently did an incredible project with a credit union going independent from a larger system that they had been part of. So I've worked across sectors, but always with large-scale projects. My work is very much focused on the creation of new ideal organizational structures. My education, my PhD, is in organizational communication with my dissertation in the communication of innovations. So I've been very active and involved with the whole idea of innovation. And what does it take to create innovation in social systems, organizational systems, healthcare, education around the world?
Beautiful. So just to put us in context, Diana and I met 48 years ago. We realized Diana was studying for her doctorate. I was working at Sun Oil Company. We both lived in Philadelphia, met up and realized we lived around the corner from each other and started a long parallel path in this world of change, and have remained friends all this time. So for me, it's also an honor, Diana, to have you and appreciate the profound influence you have had on the field of change. Tell us a little bit about how you got into this work.
Oh, that it's in a land far away, a long time ago. As I said, my studies were in the field of communication. My undergraduate was in communication, and then my PhD was in organizational communication. And we were not studying about how to communicate. We were studying organizations as communication phenomena. And so when you look at an organization as a set of narratives, as the stories that we tell each other, and then we think they're true, and we lock in, and that kind of creates the structure. It gave me an interesting orientation. And when I looked around to see where could I locate my career, the field of organization development was the most relevant. And so I wandered into an organization development network meeting. That was where I met you, and I met a number of people. I was doing research as a PhD student, and one of the directors at ARA at the time asked me if I would do some pro bono work and help his staff do some project evaluation. And I said, sure, because it gave me something to put on my resume. Anyway, so I got into that network and not only found friends, but colleagues who then guided me toward jobs and guided me toward work. And as we know, everything happens through relationships. So once I found that set of relationships and made the decision to not stay in the academy, I wasn't the kind of person who would try to get a grant, do research, then have to get another grant to do more research. It was not university material. I wanted to do something more practical. And so the field of organization development gave me a home, an identity.
Beautiful, beautiful. Tell us then how, with the emergence of appreciative inquiry, and I also want to know about the co-creation, you being a founder of the Taos Institute. Tell us about each of those paths.
Would love to. So I worked in the Philadelphia area for at least a decade, did a number of projects with pharmaceutical companies, mergers. One of the big ones was the merger of SmithKline Clinical Laboratories, in which there were a couple dozen labs across the country, and we merged them into one large system. They had been acquired and all had entrepreneurial leaders, and we needed to build one integrated system. And as that work was happening, I was in close dialogue with dear friend Kenneth Gergen. Now, Ken is a leading social scientist. He and his wife, Mary, who has passed, a dear friend. Ken was shaking up the field of social psychology. And he was also curious about some of the work that I was doing. So we had these very rich dialogues. When I moved to Taos, New Mexico, Ken and Mary came to visit. And Ken said to the two of us, do you think if we invite some of our favorite talking partners, that they would come to Taos and we could do what we love to do, have great intellectual conversations with practical application, eat good food, go to art galleries, maybe ski, go to the hot springs? And both Mary and I said, sure. And so we invited people. And a year later, along the way, we realized we needed a name if we were going to host a conference. And so it was Mary who said, there's a Santa Fe Institute, there's an Aspen Institute, let's be the Taos Institute. And so a year later, we had a conference in which over 150 people showed up from 7 different countries. And we launched the Taos Institute, which still this day continues to be a center of social constructionist thought and practice around the world. And in the course of that, it was Ken who introduced me to David Cooperrider. So David had just finished his PhD and given name to this concept, appreciative inquiry. His professor, Suresh Srivastava, had said to other graduate students, yes, you can study the problems, but you'll get depressed. You should be studying what works well in organizations. And so when David and I met, it was what became for many years just a sort of ideal match. He had a lot of intellectual thoughts about the theories of positive change, and I had a lot of experience about large-scale processes. And so we began working together. And David and I did a huge project with the transformation of GTE just before it became Verizon. We helped with the founding of the United Religions Initiative, all using appreciative inquiry in experimental phases and developing the process as we went. It was a very exciting time.
You know, I look back at those times with the creation of appreciative inquiry, with all of the organization transformation work that was happening. In many ways, I miss those times because what we were creating, we were really creating. It was like making it up and testing it out and formalizing it, codifying it. It was profound. And so with the creation of the notion of appreciative inquiry, how did you then go about disseminating it, teaching it, applying it out in the world?
Well, I want to just jump on first, and I will answer that question, your idea of Those were exciting times. I remember we were together when the group of us at the OT conference said,
Yeah.
let's propose an organizational transformation track to the OG network. And they refused us. Organizational transformation? What's that?
Right. I remember, yeah, the conflict between, is it OD, is it OT? You know, what's happening
Right,
here? One does
exactly.
not replace the other.
Right. And so your question, how did we disseminate appreciative inquiry? We started small workshops, and we had the audacity to be teaching appreciative inquiry without much experience. So we didn't have stories to tell. I had a lot of stories of my large scale work, but it had never been called appreciative inquiry, even though the way I worked was very congruent. And that was why it was an easy move for me toward appreciative inquiry. So we had workshops sponsored by the Taos Institute, started in my house in New Mexico. In the living room, we'd have 12 or 20 people. And then the word spread and grew to the point that we'd have 60 to 100 people in the room. And we just did a basic introduction to appreciative inquiry and the processes and said, go forth and do it and let us know what you learn. And then clients would say, well, but I need an advanced workshop, or I need a workshop specifically. And so we followed the requests and developed more and more training programs, as you know, so familiar how that works, and created a certificate program, which then we were able to do around the world.
So I'm going to put you on the spot here. Can you give us the 2-minute overview of appreciative inquiry?
I'd love to.
Okay.
Maybe more than 2 minutes, Linda. Let me start with old paradigm, appreciative paradigm. The old paradigm that we so often encountered was based on a medical model. Go into an organization, diagnose what's wrong. And by the way, while you're doing that, be the expert and then give recommendations and probably be the one to get the contract to fix it. Fix is part of the language. So appreciative inquiry says, let's not start with trying to figure out what's wrong. Let's start with inquiry into what works well when we're at our best.
Nice.
We don't assume that we're always at our best, but let's start by really doing a deep dive, a study into what we came to call the positive core of an organization or a community. When you're at your best, what's working well, and gathering stories, not just saying, tell me 3 things that work well. Tell me about a time when customer service was fantastic, when you were surprised by how great you did, to really get people telling stories. Because I always say, when people tell stories, you fall in love with them. When they give you a list of things, you argue with them because your list is better than their list. So that notion of appreciative inquiry being grounded in storytelling, being grounded in stories, high point stories of what works well when we're at our best, and then from there, envisioning the future. And what's kind of fun for me, Linda, in that is if I asked you a story about how you and Dean did your first training program, and you tell me about it, and I tell you a story about how David and I did our first training program, we've just learned from each other. And now you have something to add to your work, and I have something. And so there's a learning that always goes on. And if I've heard a story that you did something, I can now dream it. So dreams are expanded and much easier when they're built on understanding of strengths and what works well. So we go through what we call discovery, dream. I am particularly oriented toward what we call the design phase of appreciative inquiry, because so much of the field of OD skips design
Yeah.
and goes from what's your vision? Now, how are you going to act it? Make it real.
Yeah.
Got to design the infrastructures. And what I've always taught is help people design organizations so their values are inevitable.
Nice. Nice.
Right. And then we move into what we sometimes call destiny or delivery. And so that appreciative inquiry cycle is what grew over time, all based on the assumption of inquiry into what works well as a starting point.
Beautiful. Absolutely beautiful. It's great. And it has
Thank
had
you.
such a positive influence on how people think about making change in their organizations, particularly at this point in our society and culture when there's so much negativity, how to turn people to the positive. How have you gone about helping people shift their mindset from all the problems and all the difficulties and all the risks to what's possible, to the positive?
Linda, that's probably the biggest question. As I was preparing to meet with you today, I noted an email from a colleague teaching at a university who says, one of my students wants to know what you do with the weaknesses if you start.
Nice.
So, what I found in my teaching is that different people come to their own awareness through different ways. Some people need to hear a story, and that sort of cracks them and they go, okay. Some people need research. And now we have a lot of positive psychology research, which we didn't have back then.
Yeah.
And we have appreciative inquiry research. People need their minds to be captivated.
Yeah.
A lot of people make the shift when they get the impact on relationships that being negative, well, relationships and health, all that we know about how harmful negativity is to our health and how harmful it is to our relationships. And so they then seek to do what I call cross the appreciative threshold.
Nice.
Now, it's not always easy. I mean, there are days where I want to just sit and, complain about something.
Venting.
Venting, that's the word. But understanding that I don't think we as human beings are hardwired for the negative. I think we are deeply trained, deeply programmed, and that I think your work is so helpful in this area, when we take self-control is a funny word, but we start to have self-management. And we learn that we are in charge of our language, our questions, our thinking. It's a shift from authority to authoring, helping people understand that they are the authors of their own life and their future.
Yeah, beautiful. So what you've described is an orientation to shifting at the individual level. And I relate a lot to that. Conscious change leadership starts with who you are as a person, as a leader, your mindset, what's important to you. How do you then take it to the collective?
Well, it's interesting, Linda, because that's the one place, as I've tracked with your work over the years, we are not different. We are just at different starting points.
Yes.
I will very lightly say to people, my work is not focused on changing people. I don't want anybody to change me. My work is about believing in people and helping them change the organizations that they live in. Now, in the course of that, they change.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So we don't talk about, unless I'm doing leadership training or coaching the consciousness of the people the way that you all do.
Yeah.
We talk about the nature of the organizations and its congruity or incongruity with people's values, and congruity or incongruity with what they want more of.
Yeah.
So they become responsible for the world that they're creating.
Wonderful. And then they are motivated to initiate it because they want it.
They
They're
want it.
choosing it. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful.
And so
Beautiful.
that is a conscious change.
It is.
I mean,
Absolutely.
really, it's just a different language of it.
It is. It's
Yeah.
language, but yeah, definitely that process. And so you've written several books about this, helping to really establish the field. Give us a headline of the books that you have written.
The first one is called The Power of Appreciative Inquiry, and it's a very specific step-by-step how to do it. And the second edition of it has case studies that we gathered from clients and colleagues that are really phenomenal examples. In fact, I was talking to a colleague in Ireland yesterday because I'm on my way there, and he said, you know, like the chapter I have in your book.
Aha.
So nice. I've learned that helps spread your books by getting other people's work in it. So the power of appreciative inquiry is just a phenomenal, in many ways, a how-to guide. And then we wrote a series of books. The Encyclopedia of Positive Change, Appreciative Team Building, and most recently, Thriving Women, Thriving World, which are filled with appreciative inquiry questions. And they're in different topical areas. So if, for example, you're doing team building and you want people to talk about goal setting, there's a good, juicy question about goals and goal setting in that book. So they're very much probably akin more to workbooks, but they're small little bits. And then I did a book with all of my work has been collaboratively written, which just to me is congruent with my values and it makes life easy. We did a book on the Appreciative Inquiry Summit because that's our large group methodology. And so again, that's somewhat of a how-to book, but it's based on theory. You know, you've got a bunch of academics writing these books, so there's a balance of theory and practice. And then I wrote the leadership book, Appreciative Leadership. So there's a lot, and there's more, but those are sort of core books.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so our listeners can access more guidance from you through those resources. That's great.
Absolutely.
That's great. So I want to ask you what advice, guidance, you have all decades of experience, guidance first for leaders, and then I'll ask you guidance for change consultants. What special messages would you have? What advice, what guidance would you have for leaders?
I think for leaders, Linda, two things. One is really, really understand that innovation lives on the edge. You're not going to find the innovation, the creativity, the new ideas in the mainstream of your organization. It's the people and the ideas that are just a little off kilter, that are edgy. That's where innovation is. And so be open to really listening to the things that seem edgy, different.
Yeah.
That just aren't a piece of the puzzle. They don't fit because they're a new puzzle. They're a harbor of possibility of new. So that's number one. And number two is gather the people. Really ask the question, who else should be in this conversation? Gather the people. When I was writing the leadership book, I did this search on the word genius. And it turns out in the ancient Greek, the derivative of the word genius is the magic that emerges when all the people are together. So it comes out of the collective. It's not a trait of an individual.
Ah, nice.
And
Very nice.
so there's two reasons for that. One is you just do get better ideas, but you get the ideas of the people. So therefore, they're going to commit and carry them out.
Beautiful. It seems to me that both asking leaders to be comfortable at the edge of their comfort zones, that's a transformation itself, and how to open the door to
Right.
additional ideas. And as you said earlier, truly listen to see what's possible from those new ideas. Both very, very powerful strategies, Di.
And that's where our work does parallel, right? Because there is a new kind of leader that we hope to emerge and support.
Yes,
And
yes,
that that new kind of leader is much more of a listening leader, a curious leader, seeing what's on the edge and how to
yes,
weave it into new realities. Yeah.
yes. And for us, what's so interesting is the leaders that say, I need to understand more of who I am and how I'm either helping this organization or hindering this organization by the way in which I'm leading. And so a degree of self-awareness, self-reflection, absolutely essential then to open the door to new possibilities, to
Yeah.
doing things differently, because no blame, no shame. They realize they can't be the blockages to the
Right.
possibility. They
Right.
need
And
to
so
open
that
the door.
heightened self awareness
Yeah,
is just essential.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And then working the collective the same way. So,
Right.
those leaders that say, oh, it takes too much time, or what if I don't like what they have to say, or, it's all kinds of excuses and assumptions get made around engagement.
Right.
But the power of it is extraordinary. The engagement around possibility as opposed to engagement around problems.
Oh,
Your work opens an entirely different door.
that's right. That's right. And that's another shift, how to help people see that the of the problem is not really working.
Yeah.
One of the first things that happens when a problem is identified is we're looking at whose fault it is.
Yep.
And so it really breaks down relationships. I want to go back to this notion of working more in the collaborative and listening. After a number of years, Linda, it became almost a political stance for me.
Mm-hmm.
As a woman,
Mm-hmm.
I just got plain old tired of some of the people deciding for all of the people. And those some of the people didn't include people like me,
Mm-hmm.
right? You and I, as women pioneering on the edge, were much more exceptional than all the people who weren't being heard. And so there are times when I would have that conversation with a client team that it's not just good for the business, it's good for society. It's the right thing to do to engage people in their own life
And
and the
I will say
possible.
more so now than ever before.
Yes, yes.
Really beautiful. That's great. So, Di, how about guidance for consultants, change consultants? What would you have us do differently?
I think two things come to mind, and I had some of your questions in advance, and I wrote down one. And my first thing, and I have said this over and over, love your clients or leave.
Aha.
If you're there because you think you know better than they do, if you're there because you think you can fix them, you can make something right, you have no business being there. If you find just a thread of compassion and you really love them, then you are on the team.
Awesome.
I know it's a little strange, but that's been a guiding principle for me,
Yeah.
right? Don't
It's,
make excuses if you see people doing things that are unethical, get out.
yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and the second thing comes back to appreciative inquiry. The questions you ask are fateful. So, change your questions.
Mhm.
Ask about possibilities rather than problems.
Mhm.
Ask about what you want more of rather than how do we get rid of this. Ask about people and teams' strengths. There's a Peter Drucker quote that we use a lot in our teaching, and that is that leadership is the alignment of strengths in such a way that makes weaknesses irrelevant. And it takes me back, Linda, to when you and I were working on the book with Delta Force at the Pentagon.
Yes.
And there were those of us who were writing chapters. We were so excited. And then the question was, how's this going to get printed? Because the goal was that we would all go home with a book at the end of the week. And it turns out there were people who loved the logistics. There were people who were really good at setting up a printing process and collating and typing. And all of a sudden, I realized when you let people work from their strengths, amazing things happen. So, appreciative inquiry emerged, strength based leadership, the strength finder, all of that emerged. Then positive psychology emerged. And those three processes really go together. So I would say to consultants, do the strength finder, learn your own strengths, become proficient in it, learn to see strengths, seek strengths, and then
Beautiful.
wonder how they can play together.
Yeah. Align. I love the play together. So pieces of the puzzle, how to put together a new picture based
Right.
upon what people bring to the party and
Yes.
how and help people to see how all of that fits together. It's not a bunch of disparate parts, but really how it fits together towards creating something better.
And if there's a missing part, don't force fit it. Go find the person who belongs, who you
Nice,
need.
nice,
Don't,
nice.
don't force fit people into jobs that they're just not capable of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm reminded of another collaborative piece of work that you and I did, also uh, triggered by our work with the military, the fusion team,
Right.
which was all about bringing people together, more of a circular organization because of the strengths that they had. And then as the work proceeded, those people that had those particular strengths that were needed were called upon, and the others were not needed at any point in time. So I frequently called it dial a team based upon what strengths you bring when it's needed in the process. Those were fun times.
They were extraordinary. And there was another important point that came out of that writing that we did. And that was sometimes you need to just let go. You may not be needed on that team anymore, so go find something else. The
Yes.
team might not be needed anymore. So let's learn to let it honorably
Yeah.
go away
Yeah.
instead
Yeah.
of holding on to everybody and everything and then having all this extra weight.
Yes.
So,
Yes.
that was another piece I can remember early in my career. One of my clients were doing a merger and they had a warehouse filled with product that just wasn't going anywhere. And it was not a lot, but it was enough to be in the budget and in an irritant in their minds. So they had a funeral and they went in and they carried one of each product off the shelves. They buried them. They talked about the success of the products when they were most vibrant, and then they cleared off the shelves and went on to new business.
Excellent.
That was the other thing we were part of in our early days, a lot of ritual and ceremony.
Yeah, true.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And I still do some of that,
Yeah,
but not the same way we used to.
No, we when there were no rules, no appropriate behavior, we did all kinds of really creative things. And,
That's right.
Slowly but surely it got a little more conservative, but the basis of ritual is still very much alive in helping people go through transformational change and let go of the past. Really, really important.
Yeah. And the ritual these days, instead of putting a ribbon around your wrist, you might have some sticky notes and you carry them up to the board.
Yeah.
And you make your contribution. And then you might have a thread that connects them. So it's matured, and the way we work, and I say we, you and I am making that assumption, but it has adapted to fit into some of the more traditional environments in which we've worked and helped transform.
Yeah, absolutely. So I want to ask you to tell us what absolute success looks like from your point of view. When you know you've done a really great piece of work, what does success look like?
You get thrown out, you get kicked out. I am basking in one of those phases right now with the credit union independence project that's been going on for 3 years. Last weekend, on Friday, they shut down all the systems, and on Monday they opened up as a brand new independent credit union, separate from the larger system. And I said you get thrown out because the organization, the members of the organization have created the capacity to do it themselves. Mm-hmm. And so I usually go from being kind of a partner, mastermind, trainer, then cheerleader, then behind the scenes, strategist, coach, and, graduate phase out. Mm-hmm. And the other part about appreciative inquiry is it's always about some topic that's profoundly relevant to the organization. So it's not an inquiry into change per se. It is into employee retention. It's in customer service. It's into financial independence. There's always a topic that is driving the process. And so success is when that topic is fulfilled.
Yeah. Nice.
When the career development process that they were so curious about and learning about and designing is operational.
Yeah. It becomes normalized. Beautiful.
Yeah.
Great. Well, you having been at this for 47, 48 years, I want to know what's next for you.
Oh, there are a couple of things, Linda. One, on the very personal level, I have recently moved to Denver from North Carolina to be close to my family. My children both live here. My very adult children, let's say. And so having a local life after years of being on a plane to Japan, to Korea, to Chile, to Europe. I mean, I traveled a great deal and I loved it. I loved it. But as a result, friends would say, "Oh, I didn't know you were around," or "When are you going to be home?" So I have great curiosity and am creating a local life.
Nice.
And, I don't know all of what that will look like and what that will mean. I have declared a couple holidays. I live in a high-rise apartment, and I said to my daughter, "I want to have a New Year's Eve party last year." She goes, "Mom." And I said, "But my friends don't stay up that late." She goes, "Mom, you have the best view in the city of Denver. Don't watch the ball fall. Invite your friends to the last sunset of the year."
Ah, nice.
So you and Dean, if you want to come to Denver for the last sunset of the year. So I have that. I've created that. And I made you 4th of July for the same reason.
Yeah.
Right.
Nice.
So I'm using everything that I've learned and created to apply to creating my own life.
Beautiful.
And it's kind of fun. And the other thing, Linda, that is very conscious in my mind is helping the younger generation.
Mm-hmm.
And it's looking like, but I think it's kind of an unconscious, conscious choice, younger women.
Mm-hmm.
Younger women who are starting a business, younger women who aren't quite sure about their career, just, having a lunch, having coffee, coaching, asking questions.
Mm-hmm.
And so that is very rewarding.
Beautiful.
So that, of course, is all not paid work. So moving toward less and less working and more just living, and of course making art.
Yes,
So
your art had to come in here sometime,
yeah,
Diana.
and so I am on my way next week to Ireland to do a little touring around and to have an art workshop for a week. So I think it's creating a good life with relationships that are meaningful. I'm a maker. I got to be doing something, making things. And then all of the usual taking care of myself as I age.
Yeah, beautiful. And so the ways in which you are either reforming, recreating, or letting go of your actual work, your paid work, what does that look like for you?
Um, well, a number of years ago, I actually sold my business.
Uh-huh.
So that was a relief, and it was strange because I knew in doing so, it was up to them the direction they wanted to take things.
Yes.
And so that was a big letting go.
Huge.
And I'm really quite pleased with that. Um, I have never marketed. I've been very fortunate that my phone rings or I get an email invitation. And so those invitations are dwindling. I mostly have invitations now for speaking on podcasts or like this. And that's all fine. I probably have a couple more books in me.
Uh-huh.
My credit union client is now working on a PhD, the CEO, as he's brought this process to a big culmination. I mean, it will keep going. There's a lot of work to do. But then he and I are likely to write a book about this process. It's been quite extraordinary. And then I kind of think I've got some personal writing, memoir kinds of things. But I don't know. I'm at that phase of life, Linda, where it's more experimental,
Mm-hmm.
but I know for sure relationally grounded in
Yeah.
ways that I wasn't before.
Yeah. I'm hearing in everything you're saying, it's what you are dreaming about and dreaming for yourself.
Right.
And at
Right.
this point in time, how relevant, how
Yeah.
relevant.
Yeah.
That's great.
And to go back to when you and I met, we were both grounded in Philadelphia.
Mhm.
We had circles of friends, and
Mhm.
I haven't had that. I moved to New Mexico, brought my world with me, founded the Taos Institute, founded Corporation for Positive Change, um, moved to North Carolina, did a lot of traveling from there to Japan. I just adore all of my colleagues in Japan. And now it's time to have that circle of friends again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It
So
sounds like you're creating it.
I am. And it's nice to have the touchstone with you to remind me of what's possible.
Yes. Yes. History, relationships with long histories are so precious, are so precious. And so I'm thrilled to have you at least closer, at least in the same state I'm in,
Right.
which is wonderful.
Yeah.
Well, Diana,
Find
this
our
has been,
way.
yes, this has been such a treasure. Really, really wonderful. Are there any last thoughts, any remaining comments you'd like to share with our listeners?
I think talking to people in the field of organizational change, I want to say it's very noble work. It's good work. When you get to work in ways that are congruent with your values and your deepest beliefs, and you help people realize their values and their deepest beliefs to create a world that works for everybody. It's important work, it's good work. And the other thing about it, and why I really did for so many years cherish the field of organization development, is it is an imperative that you do your own personal development. Your clients can only be as good as you are. And I mean that not in making money or, the getting results, but in the quality of their character. And so it's a field that invites you, that calls you to be your best so that you can help other people be their best.
Absolutely. Would you mind putting that in red capital letters and posted on your 15th floor of your apartment?
Right, right. Oh,
So incredibly important. Our personal work as we contribute to organizations, to society. We
yeah,
have to walk the talk.
we have to. And we can't help anybody beyond where we've already grown to.
Yeah.
I mean, that's the piece that became so apparent, and why work like your work in leadership consciousness is so important.
Yeah.
Because as a leader does evolve, they can help society more.
Absolutely. Beautiful. Diana, thank you so much for this time. This has been really precious, really important. Your work has been incredibly important to the field, to society, to the world.
Thank you,
I
Linda.
genuinely see you for the joy and the contribution you have made. To our listeners, thanks. I hope that you've received some value from today. Enjoyed Diana and Diana's work. And I really appreciate you spending some time with us today. Thank you. Thanks for spending some time with me today. I hope you gained some valuable insights for your work. Please send me your questions and challenges by going to askdrchange.com.